Lewis Hamilton handed Ferrari an internal report, but this wasn't just another set of technical notes. It was a warning, the kind you can't ignore. He told them the car wasn't listening to him. Braking felt unstable. The steering gave no clear response, and most alarming of all, what the simulator promised was not what the car delivered on track. For a driver of Hamilton's precision, that wasn't just frustrating, it was dangerous. Behind the numbers and radio messages, he was pointing to something much deeper than setup. The foundations of the car itself were in question. Yet, while Hamilton was raising red flags, Charles Leclerc was making the same machine look alive. His aggressive driving style, late braking, sharp inputs, rotating the car through chaos, wasn't solving the problem, it was hiding it. Leclerc's instincts masked the cracks, while Hamilton's method exposed them, and that created a silent conflict inside Ferrari. One man drives on instinct, the other on data. One adapts to instability, the other demands stability. So here's the question that hangs over Maranello. When a 7-time world champion brings evidence that your car is flawed, why would you ignore it? Is it belief in the driver who thrives in chaos, or fear of admitting the car is collapsing from within? Ferrari's SF25 is quick. There's no denying that. On its best days, it can deliver blistering lap times that make headlines. But beneath the speed, there's a weakness that refuses to go away. It's fast, but fragile, and Hamilton felt that from his very first laps in red. For him, a car should be predictable. He wants stability through corners, a rear end that doesn't snap without warning, and braking that feels the same every lap. In Hamilton's world, consistency is everything, because consistency wins championships. Leclerc, on the other hand, has built his reputation on instinct. He thrives when the car moves around, when the rear feels loose, when he can throw it into a corner and catch it on the edge of control. To him, chaos is not a problem. It's an advantage. His lightning reactions and aggressive rotation make the car look alive in qualifying, where one lap of brilliance can hide the instability beneath. The clash of these two styles creates a problem Ferrari can't solve with a simple setup change. When the team shifts the balance towards Hamilton's demands, they lose the sharpness that Leclerc relies on. But when they favour Leclerc's aggressive approach, Hamilton calls the car undrivable. It's not just a difference in feedback. It's two philosophies pulling the car in opposite directions. Ferrari isn't really building one car right now. They're building two inside one. And in doing so, they're breaking both. The deeper Hamilton looked into the numbers, the clearer the cracks became. What he saw in Ferrari's state-of-the-art simulator simply didn't match what he felt on the track. The data promised a car that was compliant, balanced, and sharp under traction, but reality told a different story. Telemetry revealed mismatches, braking zones that behaved one way in simulation but another on race day, and a chassis that felt unstable when pushed over long stints. The simulator made the SF25 look more polished than it truly was, and that kind of false feedback doesn't just confuse drivers, it blinds engineers. Hamilton, with years of experience in one of the most precise systems at Mercedes, was quick to notice it. He warned that Ferrari's data was flattering the car, showing stability where there was none. Traction zones that seemed strong on the sim were weak in real life. Long corners that should have felt secure turned into fights with the rear end. To him, this wasn't a minor issue. It was a fragile setup hiding behind numbers that couldn't be trusted. Leclerc's style, though, fit perfectly with the illusion. He thrives in chaos, rotating the car aggressively, making instability look like flair. The very flaws Hamilton exposed were the same traits Leclerc used to his advantage. But here lies the trap. The car only worked when driven on the edge of control. For Hamilton, or anyone who needed predictability, it was like walking on a cliff's edge with no guardrail. This forced the engineers into a corner. Do they build the car around Leclerc's ability to snatch qualifying glory, or trust Hamilton's race-pace data that shows the car's fragility over distance? One path gives short-term speed, the other long-term survival. But Ferrari can't have both. Inside Ferrari, those technical cracks soon turned into something bigger. The engineers themselves began to split, each side pulled in a different direction by the drivers they were trying to serve. On one side was Hamilton, calm and methodical, pushing for structure, stability, and a car that behaves the same lap after lap. On the other was Leclerc, demanding a looser rear, sharper turn-in, and the kind of raw aggression that lets him throw the car into corners and dance with the chaos. Both are world-class drivers, but their needs couldn't be further apart. The garage became a quiet battlefield. Meetings that should have been about progress turned into debates about philosophy. Every upgrade brought new arguments. If they tuned the car to calm down the instability and give Hamilton the consistency he wanted, Leclerc complained that the front end felt numb and that he couldn't rotate the car the way he liked. But when the setup leaned toward Leclerc's aggressive style, Hamilton called it undrivable, warning that over a race distance the car would chew through its tyres and expose its fragile core. The result was a team tearing itself in two. Development that should have been pushing forward began to stall, as engineers struggled to balance clashing feedback that pointed in completely opposite directions. Instead of one clear path, Ferrari found itself trying to chase two. As one insider reportedly described it, "We're building two cars inside one, and it's breaking both." The silent civil war wasn't just slowing Ferrari down, it was threatening to split the very foundation of their future. As if the split in philosophy wasn't enough, strange patterns started to appear on race weekends. Hamilton, the most experienced man on the grid, repeatedly found himself boxed into traffic, fitted with the wrong tyres, or left out on track for pit stops that came just a lap too late. On paper, these looked like small strategy errors, the kind that happen to any team under pressure. But when they kept happening to the same driver, questions began to surface. Was this just coincidence, or a sign of something deeper inside Ferrari? The whispers around the paddock pointed to politics. Ferrari has invested years into Charles Leclerc, building him up as their golden boy and future world champion. Then Hamilton arrived, a 7-time champion with the power to upset that entire hierarchy. For the team, the nightmare scenario wasn't just losing races. It was watching their chosen star get overshadowed by the legend they had just brought in. In that context, every small mistake started to look like quiet protection. Leclerc benefited from aggressive undercuts and cleaner strategies, while Hamilton too often found himself testing experimental setups or paying the price of questionable calls. This wasn't open sabotage. It was something subtler, a kind of quiet resistance. Engineers dragged their feet on Hamilton's requests for stability. Adjustments he pushed for were postponed, delayed, or buried under layers of bureaucracy. The car had been built with Leclerc's style at its core, and changing that philosophy meant rewriting years of work. Inside Ferrari, loyalty clashed with performance, and that clash showed up in real time on Sundays. What looked like strategy errors on the outside were, on the inside, signs of a team wrestling with itself. The weight of all this didn't just stay within the car or the garage. It began to creep into the drivers themselves. Charles Leclerc, usually sharp and confident in his feedback, started to sound different. Instead of telling engineers what the car needed, he began reacting to what the car was doing wrong. His comments grew more emotional, less precise, and at times even conflicted. For a driver who built his career on clarity and instinct, that shift was a warning sign. Pressure was starting to chip away at him. Hamilton, by contrast, carried himself with calm precision. When the car stepped out of line, he didn't panic or raise his voice. He broke the problem down, diagnosed it, and handed the engineers a roadmap for fixing it. That methodical approach stood out even more next to Leclerc's rising frustration. In meetings and debriefs, the difference was clear. One driver was steady, the other was showing cracks. The engineers noticed it too. Leclerc's rhythm, once his greatest strength, was beginning to unravel under the strain of carrying Ferrari's expectations while fending off Hamilton's presence. Every mistake on track felt heavier, every error magnified by the knowledge that the legend in the other garage was waiting to pounce. Confidence began to erode, replaced by doubt. And in Formula One, once a driver starts doubting the car, or worse, himself, the spiral can be brutal and unforgiving. By now, it was clear Ferrari wasn't just dealing with a tricky car. The problems ran deeper than setups or tyre choices. The simulator was giving them lies, the drivers were split in philosophy, and the factory itself was divided in how to move forward. Every corner of the team was pulling in a different direction, and that made the SF25 more than just fragile. It made it a symbol of a bigger fracture inside Maranello. The core issue wasn't only technical. It was cultural. For years, Ferrari had built their car and their identity around Leclerc, shaping the philosophy of development to fit his style. Then Hamilton arrived, bringing not only his reputation, but also a demand for change, a demand for clarity and structure that went against the way Ferrari had been operating. His presence forced them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Were they willing to evolve, or were they too proud to let go of tradition? This is the crossroads Ferrari now faces. They can no longer build two cars inside one and hope for success. They must choose a path, unify behind a single philosophy, and rebuild trust from the ground up. The question is whether they can do it before the cracks spread too far. Can Ferrari find unity and stability, or will they collapse under the weight of their own internal conflict? In the end, the data doesn't lie. The SF25 is fast but fragile, and no amount of brave driving or clever excuses can hide that truth forever. Ferrari is a team divided, caught between two drivers who see the car in completely different ways, and the cracks are no longer invisible. Hamilton's methodical approach exposes every weakness, while Leclerc's raw instinct masks them just enough to keep the illusion alive. One reveals the flaws, the other hides them, but both cannot be right at the same time. What Ferrari faces now is more than just instability on track. It's the risk of collapse off it. Politics, fractures inside the garage, silence in the face of growing problems, and indecision at the very top are tearing at the foundations of the team. A car built to please both has ended up pleasing neither, and time is running out. So the question is simple, but the answer could define Ferrari's future. Will they evolve, unify behind a single philosophy, and finally build a car that works for both man and machine? Or will they implode under the weight of pressure, pride, and division? The choice is theirs, but the clock is ticking.